Listeners, let's just get right into it today. I'm talking with Greg Mohr. And Greg, I want you to tell us something about being a franchise owner that might surprise us.
The biggest thing that I get, Jonathan, from people is the fact that you don't have to be a millionaire and you don't have to work it full time to get into a franchise.
That sounds pretty good to me. We are diving into franchises today. Listeners, welcome to the Source of Commercial Real Estate, where we talk to the experts in commercial real estate so you can grow your business, find a competitive advantage, and use real estate to live the life that you want and franchises. Today, I am your host, Jonathan Hayek. I'm a former public school teacher who found financial freedom through residential real estate investing, and now I invest in commercial properties, particularly small industrial. And today I'm talking with Greg Mohr. Greg is a former corporate ladder climber. Starting off his career running several Taco Bell franchises for a franchisee, Greg eventually became bored and unfulfilled with his own corporate career. After reading Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he realized that what was working for others was boring to him. Eventually, he got laid off and was forced to fully embrace his side hustle. He's appeared on the Bigger Pockets Money podcast, and many real estate investors reached out to him expressing their interest in either diversifying or incorporating franchises into their real estate investing. And today, Greg has helped nearly 200 entrepreneurs and corporate holdouts create wealth, build financial freedom and security through opening 450 franchises. Greg has won multiple awards. He's authored 2 books, and I am privileged to be talking with him today. Greg, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Excellent, Jonathan. It's an honor to be with you today. I appreciate the opportunity.
Greg, I read a little bit about your background already, but why don't you continue the conversation with telling us more about your background and what your work looks like today?
Thank you, Jonathan. I'll keep it kind of brief. We won't go all the way back to my single digit years. The first time I got into franchising was actually, well, as Jonathan mentioned, when I worked for a lady that owned 50 Taco Bells. So I just, back in high school, a lot of us back in the late 70s got a job at fast food. I just happened to pick Taco Bell. And lucky for me, she just happened to be a master franchisor who owned 50 Taco Bells. So I helped her build up her restaurants all over the place, my first foray into franchising. Fast forward years later, I got laid off, as Jonathan mentioned. I was a restaurant manager for 15 years, microelectronic circuit engineer for 15 years, got a master's degree in business, owned dry cleaners, storage units, real estate, rental properties. Got laid off and said, I got to do this again. That dry cleaners and the storage units were privately owned businesses. And I tell you, that's a big challenge getting into a privately owned business that you know nothing about and thought you could do it. So I said, I got to get back into that franchising thing. That was a lot of fun. So I clicked on a lot of franchises, had about 20 different people calling me from all over the place. Very confusing until I got a hold of a franchise consultant who made the process simple, easy, a lot less confusing. Got me into a franchise, did that for a couple of years, and then I thought, I really liked what that franchise consultant was doing, getting to work with people all over the United States and actually all over the world, helping people get into franchising and realize their dream of franchise ownership. So I went back to him, said, teach me what you do. That was 12 years ago and haven't looked back since.
Listeners, we are going to get into why we are talking about franchises today. And because we're usually talking about commercial real estate. Today, we are talking about a related field, franchising, and we're going to get into why you as a real estate investor might be interested in franchises. But first, Greg, I would like us to define some terms. We're throwing around the term franchise, and I personally am a little unclear about exactly how franchises work. What is a franchise? What's a corporately owned store or operation versus what's a franchise? So can you help us define our terms? What are we talking about when we use the term franchise?
Jonathan, you are talking about renting or leasing out a business model. So these are all business models that you're leasing, basically, is what you're doing. On that, the franchisor has already developed and already gone through all the mistakes and developed a step-by-step process of how to operate a particular business in a particular industry. You follow that process and procedures, and that's going to theoretically get you to where you want to be 2 to 3 years quicker than if you were to do it yourself on that. So franchising is all about that proven business model, that step-by-step direction, to get you operating and getting into that business as quickly as possible.
Okay. And the types of businesses, if correct me if I'm wrong, but it's virtually unlimited. I was staying at a hotel last week and it was a Holiday Inn, and I see on a sign on the wall that says, "This hotel is operated by ABC Hospitality LLC." Is that an indication that that hotel is actually owned by a franchisee?
Yes, it could possibly be owned by a franchisee on that when they're owned by something else on those. Uh, a lot of those are when they're owned by another entity like that. It's generally a franchise, and as you indicated, a franchise can be in any industry itself, and you don't have to run it full time. You can do it semi-absentee. We have services industry. We have the brick and mortar industry. Jonathan, you and I, when we drive around, we see all the different brick and mortar franchises: McDonald's, Taco Bell's, Meineke, Mako, Supercuts, all those. But there's also another part of it is the services industry. As you just indicated, there's in just about every industry that you want to, you can do it. And a question I didn't, I forgot to answer earlier, the difference between a corporate and the franchise. A corporate is if you are going to build out your business yourself, you've got a business, you want to build it out, a corporate location, you spend the money on that corporate location itself. So you use your money to keep growing on that. Whereas with a franchise model, you have somebody else pay their money to open up that new location. So as a corporate model, you're doing all the work yourself. You're spending all the money for that new location. You run it, you operate it, so you can grow. But growth is a little more linear because you have to have the money to do it. Whereas if you were to do a franchise, if you turn your business into a franchise, become a franchisor, your growth is more exponential because now you're not spending your money to open that new location. Somebody else is, but you're not getting all the profit from it. You'll get the royalties, generally between 5 and 10% on that one. So that's a little bit of the difference. It just depends on how fast you want to grow with that.
And I want to clarify exactly what types of businesses we're talking about, because as you drive down the road and you see these businesses, a lot of people assume that these businesses, that all the businesses are corporately owned. You see a chain like Holiday Inn or Subway or even Chick-fil-A or Roto-Rooter, and you assume that there's somebody sitting in a big tower in New York City on Park Avenue that owns that. But it's actually more likely that some of those businesses are owned by potentially someone local and they're actually a franchisee. Is that right?
Absolutely correct, Jonathan. And that's one of the benefits of when you grow your business as a franchisor is that what you're really looking for there is somebody local to that area. So you now have a local, owner for that franchise. That's what they're looking for. And they generally, when you're getting into a franchise system, the franchises like you to be right there within about a 30 to 60 mile radius of your area because you are the local name and face of that business.
When I think about buying or leasing a franchise and starting it myself, I think about like a Subway. Like if I wanted to open up a Subway, does that mean that I'm going to be the one behind the counter making sandwiches? Or if I buy a Roto-Rooter, am I going to be doing house calls and clearing drain pipes? How does this all work? Am I buying myself a job by doing this?
Only if you really want to. Most of the time, the franchisors would appreciate you not doing that. My handyman franchises specifically tell me, do not send us handymen. All they want to do is work in the business. And we don't want that. Most franchisors want you working on the business. If you're in there doing the actual work, it's going to be a lot harder for you to build that business up. And if you take a step back, let somebody else do the work, and you're working on it. Plenty of franchises out there where if you like working with your hands and you want to do that yourself, I can find you one where you can do it yourself. But for the most part, they're looking for you to work on the business, not necessarily either full time. You can be semi-absentee where you can hire a manager to do it for you on that. So you're looking at 10 to 15 hours a week managing the manager, managing profit and loss statements.
Yeah, so that makes me think about how to choose a franchise. What sort of business to invest in? Because my mind immediately goes to something I'm passionate about. So, like if I love animals, it makes me think, oh, I want to open up a dog grooming, retail space. Or, I love working with my hands, and so I want to be a handyman, something like that. But are you telling me that it's actually best to maybe not have specific skills in that area? Or should we be looking in an area in which we're passionate about? How do you guide people in selecting a franchise that would be a good fit?
Well, first thing I do, Jonathan, is when we're talking with those folks, when I'm talking with you. So, Jonathan, where have you been? So, where have you been? What does that mean? The boxes in your attic are golden. That means what skill set are you bringing to the table? Simple as that. So that I can match that up with the skill set the franchisor is
Can we
looking
go
for.
through it right now?
Yeah,
Let's
absolutely.
let's pretend I'm interested in purchasing a franchise. You're my consultant, and I'm like, I love this idea, but I don't know. There's so many options. How do I choose?
So first of all, when we're taking a look at that, is I will send you out a matrix of business types so you'll have a general idea of it. We don't have that here, so we'll get the abbreviated version of that. So most people, Jonathan, don't know what industry they want to get into. Are there any industries that you do not like and want to stay away from?
I'm not great in sales. I don't like door to door sales, cold calling. Um, I am kind of pro environment, and so I don't love the idea of like opening a gas station or something like that. Things that are going to be polluting to the environment. But other than those things, I'm pretty open.
Excellent. Are you looking for something that you can do full time? Would you rather have something that you can do semi absentee on the side?
Oh, part time. When you said 10 to 15 hours, you're speaking my language. I love the idea of only working 10 to 15 hours.
Then the next thing I usually ask is not how much money do you have to invest in a franchise, but what are you comfortable investing in a franchise? And when we're asking that, we're looking at whether you would be more involved with something that's a service industry where it's $150,000, give or take, or whether you want something that's more brick and mortar so that you have a building to go to, but it's probably going to be $300,000, $400,000 as an investment level.
I see. This is, just one element of my portfolio. So if I could be more in the 150K range, more service oriented, I think that would be a better fit for me.
Perfect. Now, do you prefer or do you have a preference working with more skilled workers or less skilled type workers, or does it matter?
I have more experience working with less skilled workers.
Okay. So we'd be looking for something then that's semi absentee, hourly employees, simple, easy hourly employees, easy to replace, easy to take over for if you need to. Generally doesn't happen on that one. We're looking for something that's environmentally friendly. So we're probably looking at something that is maybe home services type franchise system. However, you like getting involved in real estate. I know your background's in real estate and commercial real estate. So what we'll be looking for is we might be checking out something in the way of a commercial cleaning franchise that uses healthy products, environmentally friendly products, or a home services franchise, for instance, lawn care, something like that, or pest control that again is environmentally friendly and uses environmentally friendly products. Or if you want to kind of concentrate on where you're at now with the commercial real estate, then we might look at something in the way of building maintenance on that so that the building manager has just one person to go to if they need anything at all done in that building at all, whether it be groundskeeping, cleaning, HVAC, one stop shop. Your manager will be that person that they go see. So we have several different options that we can take a look at for you.
Love it. All right. And scene. All right, Greg, that was great. I really appreciated you kind of coaching me and asking me those questions to help me decide what kind of franchise would be a good fit for me. Can you talk a little bit about? You had a lot of success appearing on Bigger Pockets Money podcast. That's largely a real estate investor audience, and yet you had such an outpouring of interest from your appearance there. Can you talk a little bit about why you think real estate investors are a good fit for investing in franchises?
Jonathan, real estate investors are great for franchises because a lot of the things that are the people that they work with are franchise type people in franchise type operations. For instance, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, anything to do with maintenance around the house. All these folks, they work with these people. Real estate investors work with these folks on a regular basis, so they have a general familiarity with that business already. So it's a very simple and easy process, and it's a good addition to what they're already doing since they own many real estate properties already. To have these people do that, And amazingly enough, the one major theme, again going back to that from the bigger podcast, what those people came to me is that they said, I didn't know there was anything other than a brick and mortar or a restaurant type franchise out there. I didn't realize that there's this many options. I want to diversify, not only own real estate, but another business on the side that's compatible with real estate. I go this together. Matter of fact, one of my people actually came to me and said, I'm looking for a brewery on that. I thought that'd be a good one. Well, they ended up getting into an electrical services franchise on that. And the wife was kind of in the background the whole time, and they were going to run a semi absentee. And she steps up at the very last moment and says, I can do that full time. I don't need anybody to run that for me. I can do that. So it was really great. But it's the compatibility with what they're already doing and their familiarity with the different businesses that are associated with properties and property management that really got them going on that.
If someone's considering a franchise, what are some of the top factors that should go into their decision in selecting which franchise is a good fit for them?
Their goal, their long-term goal on that. So you were talking about passions and that sort of thing. Quite often, a few of those people actually said, well, my passion is actually making money. Which ones make the most money? It's like, okay. The Federal Trade Commission kind of restricts on what I can say about, how much each individual franchise is going, but we'll bring in for you. But I can show you the ones that, turn over a good profit on that. But what you really should be considering is what really is your end goal and what are you comfortable with? Not only with, as we talked about before, the time investment, the money investment, but what kind of businesses are you comfortable with? What's your risk tolerance on that? So that's why sometimes I'll go back to essential services, those electrical, plumbing, HVAC companies. It doesn't matter, or restoration services. It doesn't matter what the economy's doing. If it's broke, especially your air conditioning or heating, it's going to be fixed, and your plumbing, it's going to be fixed now on that one. So that's a lot of that is what I go over with them is what's your risk tolerance, what's your goal, and how can we use a franchise to get you to where you want to be.
So you hit on returns. So let's go into it a little bit as much as you're able to. What kind of returns should an investor expect? Let's say they buy a home services franchise for $150,000. What sort of returns are reasonable to expect?
You should really be looking at somewhere around the 20 to 25% range for most of these franchise systems. It will depend a little bit on what kind of equipment you may need on some of those. But generally speaking, they're a really good return because you don't have a lot of upfront costs and you don't have a lot of overhead. There's some of them that are actually more than that if you do it yourself. Say, for instance, if we're looking at something that has plastic, vinyl, or leather repair, which is a really good franchise system, that one's got huge returns, double digits up there, above 50% on some of those, especially if you do it yourself, because now you've got no overhead for employees. You can get a really good return on those. But in general, 20, 25% should be a good number to be looking for.
You hit on what I would call a sweet spot, and I'm a value add investor. I'm always looking for opportunities and hacks and maybe even shortcuts. So you talked about plastic and vinyl repair. I'm not even sure what that is, but can you think of, are there any other sort of sweet spots where the returns are disproportionate to the amount of work or skill required?
On that one, there are niches that you can do for that. So one of the niches is a couple of them that people don't necessarily think of or wouldn't even imagine doing or even probably want to do on that. But crime scene cleanup is actually one which has got a huge good return on that. You do have a lot of equipment in there, but unfortunately, it is or fortunately, depending on your point of view, it is a good solid business and always in need of that. Another one that I saw that had really good returns on it and really made some good money, which I was surprised to see, which is duty calls. So yeah, your animal poops, people clean it up. Most people think that's like, oh, so you go into people's backyards and clean up the poop. Well, it's like, no, but think about parks. Think about golf courses with all the geese out there and all that. There's all sorts of animals that go to the bathroom out there, not just your doggy and your kitty. It's on that one. That one's a big business, and that's a niche business that people wouldn't think about doing. So those niche businesses are are good solid investments.
Well, I mean, 20 to 25% returns. A lot of real estate investors are, that's their best case scenario with some of their investments. And so those numbers sound great. What mistakes do you see investors make when they're looking to purchase a franchise?
Well, first off, Jonathan, when you're looking to get into a franchise, always talk with as many other franchisees as you can to get a good feel for the business. So never take my word for anything. Never take the franchisor's word for anything. I will make certain, and the franchisor will expect, any good franchise system will expect you to talk with as many franchisees as it takes for you to get a good feel for the business. And I have a list of questions for you for both the franchisors and the franchisees. But these folks, I put them in front of the franchisees. These franchisees are brutally honest with them. They may not be having a very good day sometimes when people call them. So they'll get the good and the bad and the otherwise. Well, one of the questions I ask them is, how much do you make? How long did it take you to get there? What did you have to do to get it? And I say, picture yourself doing that. If you can, you're on the right track. If you can't, well, you better hire somebody to do it for you or move on to the next one on that one. Funding, don't discount funding. There's a lot of good funding people out there. A lot of my investors like using other people's money. You can also use your own money. 401k rollover into a self-directed 401k, IRA into a self-directed 401k if you don't like going into debt. Always take advantage of other sources out there for information. The local SCORE chapter, SCORE, that's probably in your area. Those are business people that have been in business in your area for quite some time. I use them when I was looking into my different franchises. I help them out. So you take advantage of those folks as well. Chamber of Commerce is a good area to look into as well. But mostly avoid looking at things that may be trendy, that may be shiny, the new objects on that. Really take a look at the business model if you're going to do something like that and the longevity of that. How long can that stay in business? Always a good one to do. Those are just a few. I've got 7 of them actually out there on my website, 7 mistakes to avoid. If you go to my website, you can find it and download it.
Greg, can you talk about some other due diligence items that potential investors should go through when they're considering a franchise? You talked about talking with other franchisees. What other questions, what other ideas should someone be thinking about when considering the strength of the franchisor when they're looking to purchase a franchise?
So depending on your risk tolerance, one other question that I didn't ask you that I failed to ask you was on your risk tolerance. What would you like to look at in a franchise? Somebody with 100 or more franchises in their system, or are you okay with an emerging franchise where you get a lot of personal hands-on help from the people that actually created the franchise, but you may not have 5, 10 franchisees out there call upon until you're one of the first. So with the strength of the franchise, you're looking at how many, which basically is how many times have they replicated that, so that you know that it's been replicated enough times in enough different cities that the chances are pretty good that it's going to do well in your area. Going through the franchise disclosure documents, if you want to make certain that they are good at what they do, take a look at their background, which will be included in there. What kind of a background do they have in franchising? Have they done franchises before? Have they been successful at it? Or are they brand new at it? So those are the things to look at. Going through the franchise disclosure documents still further, you'll have things in there like, are there any bankruptcies? What's the financials look like as far as the franchise system goes on that? Another important section is going to be looking at is how many franchisees are currently operating that franchise system, which is item number 20 in the franchise disclosure documents, and how many people have started it and are no longer running it. Pretty simple and easy math, and to get a success rate on how successful this franchisor is picking out the right franchisee. And we like to see 85, 90% or greater on something like that.
I've heard some challenging stories from franchisees, say, like an owner of a quick serve restaurant, where the corporate, the franchisor comes down and says, "Hey, we are doing a whole branding makeover, and so you as the franchisee are now going to be required to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to revamp the look of your store." And, if they have a contract with that franchisor, they're obligated to do this. I would think that would be one downside of this franchisee model. Can you list off any other potential downsides like that of investing in this way?
Well, there, if you start out with an emerging franchise, one of the downsides is the fact that they might just go out of business. So now it doesn't mean you're necessarily going to lose the business. You're just going to lose the support of the franchisor that's running it. So that's why if your risk tolerance is real low, then go with a franchise that has been around for a number of years and has a number of franchises. But yes, if you have something that's, especially the brick and mortar type franchises where you've got that certain layout, that certain color pattern stuff, that will be in there. You might be able to get something in your franchise agreement, and I've got good franchise attorneys that'll help you with that, saying that, I'm not going to be making any changes to that. I don't know how the franchisors will take it. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But those are the things you can get into. But those, what you mentioned, are one of the main things with going with a brick and mortar franchise that you may have to change. But the other one is just that the franchisor goes out of business, and now you're stuck. You're on your own with that sort of thing.
Let's say I go through with the purchase of our hypothetical example before of this commercial real estate cleaning services company.
Mm-hmm.
If I go ahead with the purchase, on day one that I take over, or that I take ownership, what should I expect to receive? Do I get any training, or am I handed a big binder of a procedure manual, or what should I, as the franchisee, expect when I take over a franchise?
I'm going to hand you a big binder and say, "Go get them, Tiger." No, just kidding. They are not. So what you're going to expect and what you want to find out from the other franchisees, especially talk to the ones that just started out, is, did you get the mentor? And the franchise is going to go over with, as you're going through your due diligence process and going over everything with the franchise with development people, they're going to say, this is how we're going to train you to get things started. And after we get things started, this is what we're going to do for you. So what you want to expect from there is a mentor, somebody that's going to help you out. So first thing you're going to do, back to the beginning, first thing, you're going to go to their offices. You're going to get trained 3 days a week. Everything that you need to know about how to run and how to operate that franchise business, they're going to teach you how to do. You've done that. You opened your doors. Now that you've opened your doors, if you're in the service industry, then you want that mentor there that's going to be checking with you your key indices, making sure you're following up on whatever it is that that franchise needs you to do. They may be making phone calls. You may be making phone calls. Depends on the franchise. But you want them to make certain. Then every week, every day, whatever it takes, you want somebody there that's going to help you grow that business on there. If you have a brick and mortar, you want that grand opening. You want them there for that grand opening to get it in there. If you're going to do a brick and mortar, try looking for a membership model. What you want to be looking for there is how that franchise is going to help you grow that membership before you open the doors. So all this support and all this training is the things that you want to verify with the franchise and then with the franchisees that are doing it to make certain that that franchise actually went through with it and did those sort of things for the folks.
Yeah, I would think that would be part of the due diligence process of sort of verifying and matching up. Okay, they say they're going to provide this training, and then maybe talking with other franchisees. Did they actually follow through with that training?
Exactly. You never want to wonder, what do I do next? You never want to be in that. That's why you paid that franchise fee. That's why you're paying those royalties. And you're absolutely correct, Jonathan. That's why you follow up with the existing franchisees to find that out.
We talked earlier about potential startup costs and it ranging between $150,000 to $300,000. Let's talk about paying for it. So you could obviously pay for it in cash. Do franchisors offer seller financing options? Are these businesses SBA loan eligible? Are there any other ways to go about purchasing a franchise?
Yep. So you do it with your own money. If you do it with a 401k, it's got to be a 401k with a previous employer so you can roll it over into a self-directed 401k. We have people that'll do all that for you, so you don't need to worry about that. Then basically you have a C corporation and you're using your own retirement money for that. IRAs, you can do the same thing, roll those over self-directed. That's your own money, use your own stuff, or you just pay cash if you've got it. Now, you want to use other people's money. Many different ways to do that. SBA is one of the simple ways to do that. Again, I have many different folks that fund franchises. Franchises are easy to fund because of the fact they've got that proven track record. It just comes down to, as long as you've got that net worth that's needed and you've got the credit score, you're good to go. So looking at SBA loans, you're looking at it for a services industry franchise, you're looking at an SBA type express loan. They give you about $150,000 to $200,000 for an SBA express loan. Again, we got people to do that for you. Take about a month. You put down about $20,000. SBA puts in the rest. Pretty easy to do on that. If you're getting into a brick and mortar type franchise, you're probably going to be going the SBA 7A route, whereas you put down around 20%, something like that. Again, pretty easy to do. Just depends on your credit. And again, going with a great franchise system that's been around for a while. They got the proven track record, so SBA is good with it.
Really helpful. Greg, I would love for you to shed some light on what it's like for your clients to work with you. Let's say a listener hears this and says, you know what? This sounds like a great complement to my real estate investing. What is it like to work with you? Someone calls you up or emails you and says, Greg, I want to work with you for you to help me find a franchise. What's it like?
So first step in the process is you schedule an appointment with me. We talk. You ask me anything you want about me. You ask me anything you want about franchising. I answer that for you. I kind of find out what it is that you are expecting out of a franchise, make sure those expectations are correct or somewhat reasonable on that. My goal is to get you educated on franchising on that. Franchising is not for everybody. I'm not going to try and convince you it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, because for some people it is not. So mine's about education. So that's the first step. As long as we get through that, and that's I just want you comfortable with me, knowing about franchise, knowing about myself. I send you out a questionnaire to fill out. Our second call, after you get that questionnaire filled out, it's going to be all about you. We're going to talk about you for about a half hour. I need to get to know everything I can about you, about what you're looking for, just like you and I went through, Jonathan, before. That was kind of the abbreviated version. We have a little longer version on that one. Well, again, we'll be looking at where have you been, where are you at now, where do you want to be, industry likes, industry dislikes. So we're just getting to know each other, getting comfortable working with each other, and I'm getting to know you as well as I can. And so I can do that matchup between you and the franchisors that I work with.
I should have asked you this before. A lot of entrepreneurs might scoff at the idea of purchasing a franchise because an entrepreneur might say, no. I don't want anyone looking over my shoulder. I don't want the franchisor checking in on me or giving me these various requirements. Is that what it's like to own a franchise? Do you always have someone breathing down your neck, or do these franchise owners have more autonomy than that?
You actually have quite a bit of autonomy to do a lot of the things that you want to do with a franchise. I'd have to say some of my young entrepreneurs probably don't like that because they can do it themselves. I figure they can do it themselves. They can do it better. Amazingly enough, some of my older entrepreneurs who have been through a few different businesses and they still want to be in business, but they've sold out for everything they have. I tell them, you've done it before. Why are you bothering coming to me? Just, go out and do it again. They're like, no, I've done that before. I know what kind of work is involved with that. I just want to step into a business and do it. Now, I had a lady that got into a business. She was an executive in the gaming industry, hotel, restaurants, and she bought into a tutoring franchise over in Las Vegas Valley on that. And she had an idea because she was looking at the business model when she first started. She said, you guys aren't hitting up the hotels and motels for that. And I think that'd be a great way to start attracting people. And they said, go for it. Go forth and prosper. Give it a shot. She did. Didn't work out. Okay. So she went back to their model and was therefore successful in that. So they will give you the autonomy to do things. My suggestion to everybody is that learn the system first. Once you've learned the system, then start coming up with other creative ideas. That's where a lot of businesses grow and they develop because their franchisees come up with great ideas, great creative ideas on there. So you can always be creative on that. You don't always have somebody breathing down your neck, but they do have that. And what you're paying for is that step-by-step process. That is what you're paying for to do it. So you're not wondering what to do next. So follow that process. They won't be breathing down your neck, but if you don't do well, they just might be breathing down your neck saying, let's take a look at what you're doing and let's try and fix it.
It seems like for someone aspiring to be an entrepreneur, but not knowing where to start or not having the business background, it seems like this model makes a lot of sense because you get some autonomy, but you also get your hand held a little bit. You don't have to come up with the idea from scratch. You don't have to come up with the procedures and operations from scratch. Things are there for you, but you at least have some autonomy. You can run your own day. You can hire your people, and with the returns that you described before, it seems like an opportunity for people to diversify their portfolio. If people are struggling in their real estate right now, real estate is tough out there right now. And so there might be some opportunities in some other asset classes beyond real estate, not necessarily as a replacement, but maybe as a complement to a real estate investing portfolio. Finally, Greg, if someone purchases a franchise, what is the exit strategy? Do they have some sort of contract? Are they able to build it up to be really successful and sell it for a profit? How does the exit go of a franchise?
Great question, Jonathan. So, exit strategy of a franchise. You're going to sign that franchise agreement for 5 to 10 years. Doesn't mean you have to stay for 5 to 10 years at all. Once you built that up, you're ready to sell it, running great, you tell the franchisor, I'm ready to sell my business. What the first thing they're going to do is they're going to find adjacent franchisees and say, Jonathan is selling his franchise, running great. If one of you guys or gals want to pick it up, now's the time. That's generally what happens. It gets picked up. People come to me wanting to buy resale franchises all the time. I do not have a good inventory of resale franchises because of the fact that other franchisees are going to pick them up first. So occasionally I'll have some that are good and they'll get sold quickly, especially if they're doing well. So great market for it, easy to do.
And how do you get paid, Greg?
Great question, Jonathan. The franchisors I work with pay me a referral fee, so there's never any charge to you for my services, and I work with about 500 different franchises.
Okay, great. So someone wants to reach out to you. There's really no risk, no charge to have that conversation.
That is absolutely correct. I'm free. Lots of great information.
Great. Greg, we've spent about 35 minutes here talking about franchises. It was a great conversation for me. Was there anything that we didn't hit on that you feel like listeners should know about your business?
Well, let's see. Okay, so easy to fund. Use your money, somebody else's money. I got funding people for you. I got CPAs for you. I've got franchise attorneys for you. So franchise attorneys, always use a great franchise attorney before you sign any agreements on that. The franchise agreement, there's not a lot that can be changed in the franchise agreement, but if there's something out of the ordinary, the franchise attorney is going to take a look at that and going to get that changed. There are a few things that can be changed, so always use a great franchise attorney. The one thing that they will do for you is they will let you know what you're getting yourself into and making certain that you are okay with that. So always use a good franchise attorney.
Greg, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure being here, Jonathan. I appreciate you having me, sir.
Listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation, feel free to reach out to either one of us. We love talking about commercial real estate and buying franchises, and we would love to talk with you. Greg, last thing I forgot to ask you, if people want to reach out to you, where would you like to send them?
You can go to my website, franchisemaven.com. That's franchise, M-A-V as in Victor, E-N.com. Email me at greg@franchisemaven.com or just pick up the phone and give me a call at 361-772-6401.
Those links and his contact info are in the show notes. Greg, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Jonathan.